Entry number 37. The Space Station Starsiege. Home to IPUS.
I can look at that leg if you'd like.
It'll be fine.
I'm a doctor. Let me look at it.
It's fine.
It was squunched by a pidashu. I want to look at it.
Fine. It's not the first time I've had a leg squunched.
I'm sure.
Is it okay?
I'll let you know. Go ahead and start up Gushu.
Welcome to the Ordinal Resource Library, a vast compendium of over 6 million articles detailing all knowledge in the known systems. I am your guide to the Ordinal Resource Library, or GIRL. I will hold for applause.
My leg's okay, isn't it?
How does this feel?
Okay, I mean, it hurts, but, it's just a squunch.
I'm holding for applause.
Oh, I think your leg's fine.
Very good. The knowledge included in the URL details everything, including entry number 7001 on the Grassembest. The Grassembest is a large quadrupedal monocot with shaggy green fur. They have 4 slender legs which hold up, somewhat miraculously, their bulbous body, into which their head fuses seamlessly. They have deep, soulful eyes as well. The Grassembest is deeply important to agriculture and is used for meat, milk, and their strong hides. Grassembest dung is also a popular fertilizer, and there's research being done into using their dung as a cheap source for rock jumper fuel. Also, did you know that the Grassembest was seen as an avatar for the divine dimension in the old religion of Irisut? They were! In fact, this is why much of the old pachyderm empire of the matriarchy of the proboscis didn't eat grassem beef. Grassembest were also a primary beast of burden, helping to pull plows, carts, and other farming implements. Also, they were the first animal to have their full genome mapped out, and as such, they've played an important role in scientific achievement and in the history of cloning. Yes, truly, the systems would look very different without the Grassembest. For more information on this remarkable animal, please visit entry number 7001.
It's really okay? My leg?
Yes, you'll be fine.
For today, though, we take a look at the space station Starsiege. We'll peer into its deep and storied history, visit some of the primary captains of Starsiege, and answer the question, what makes Starsiege so impenetrable? Starsiege is the current seat of political power in IPUS. The captain's logs present us with valuable primary sources from the Dark Ages, and it's one of the longest-running space stations in the systems. We obviously have a lot to get through, so let's throw the Grassembest in front of the cart here. But first... let's review! IPUS is the interstellar parliament of the Ordinal systems. It is split up into 4 branches of government. The Solus of the Oid Truss, the Imperium of the Arthe Truss, the Brachium of the Autu Truss, and the Lingui of the Day Truss. IPUS is a good government which tries really, really hard. Please be impressed by this. Please, oh please. Ordinal time is split up into 4 epochs: Postia Terra, Anticonciliatus, Empire Year, and IPUS Year. Postia Terra lasted 1,885 years. Anticonciliatus lasted 2,019 years. Empire Year lasted 1,000 often violent years. And we are currently in the IPUS years, where everything is much better. The main unit for space travel is the light year, which is the distance light can travel in a year, roughly 2,102,377,778 decimeters. The next highest unit is a parsec, which is 3 light years. The largest unit of space travel is a systo, which is 4 parsecs, or 12 light years. The smallest unit for space travel is a spacoclaft, which measures about 1/150th of a light year, or roughly 14,015,778 decimeters. There are 4 classifications of starships. The first is a rock jumper, which cannot survive in the void for long and should only be used for short-range transit between planets. The next is the starship, which can survive in the void a fair amount of time and is used to travel between star systems. Spaceships are used for long voyages through the void and are used for long-way transportation. Space stations are like spaceships but live in orbit. This has been the review.
That's a lot to review.
We're nearing the end of lessons, so there's much more you're expected to know.
Okay, cool.
While I have my other classes on hold, I would like to apologize. Your friend had some questions last session, and I did not answer them.
You're busy too.
Oh yeah, that's okay, Gushu.
I will answer what you wish after this lesson.
Okay.
We're working on that starship, though.
Yeah, we may not be able to stay that long.
The invitation still stands. Let us move on. The start of the journey. The starship Poohove. The space station Starsiege began its life as the starship Poohove, the culmination of the shipbuilding efforts of the old Uzhuyong Republic. The story of the Poohove begins in 893 Anticonciliatus, when Solubus Orba's birth was first theorized by Uzhuyongi scientists, some 32 years before the Great Mistake. The birth of a star is something rare and beautiful to see, and so the New Star Premium mission was formed to send a group of scientists to Solubus Orba to view either its birth or the early stages of its existence. The ship that would make this arduous 5-light-year journey would be the Poohove, an Uzhuyongi name meaning Ship of Unity. The Poohove was state-of-the-art for the time, with the fastest engines and the best life support that Uzhuyong could build. I would happily describe the Poohove systems and engines in depth, but because this information is needed to complete the Poohove problem, a popular math problem used on the captain's exam, I am forbidden by IPUS to go into further details. I do know the answer to the Poohove problem, but I just can't say it. You have to figure it out for yourself. But I do know the answer. Please quit asking me to give it away. Before the Poohove launched in 900 Anticonciliatus, though, the New Star Premium mission launched the Dispatch, what we would call a starship. It was a smaller and less impressive ship that was launched at the beginning of 894 Anticonciliatus to act as a harbinger for the Poohove. The Dispatch would try to scrounge up fuel ships in the systems along the route, communicate back to the Poohove and New Star Premium headquarters about debris, solar tides, and other issues that the Poohove may encounter during their journey. It was thanks to the Dispatch that most of the Poohove's journey went smoothly. The Poohove was saved from being caught in the waves of the Sea of Thumbs, and a safe route was able to be mapped through the debris cloud outside of System Pole. Currently, the Dispatch is shipwrecked a few spacklecrafts outside of System Claxton. The Poohove would have taken 56 years to travel the 5 light years between System Stella and System Solubus Orba. Fortunately, the Poohove also launched at the height of the Uzhuyong Republic, where the Republic spanned from System Phoenix to Po, with relations open in Bright Dot and, more importantly, in System Tethuya. The breadth of the Uzhuyong Republic helped the Poohove scrounge up fuel for half its journey, as it was seen as a point of national pride. To assist the Poohove was seen as a civic duty, which helped keep the fuel reserves full, the technology up to date, and the hulls repaired. When the mistake wave hit in 925 Anticonciliatus, the Poohove was blasting its engines about a spacklecraft outside of Astrum's orbit. Fortunately, the Dispatch had already traveled throughout Astrum, soliciting fuel, and Planet Batsy had launched a refueling ship to meet the Poohove. This ship was called the Oid, and in 925 Anticonciliatus, it was in orbit around Batsy, ready to refuel the Poohove when it came to Astrum.
1, 2, do you read?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll be back 1.
Okay.
Go ahead, 6.
When the mistake wave hit, all electronic systems on board the Poohove died, including the water recovery systems, the oxygen generation systems, and the thermostats. With these systems gone, the crew of the Poohove had only 3.5 hours of breathable air left in the ship before all 650 people on board would die. The executives of the Poohove spent the next hour coming up with a survival plan, while stoking the growing panic of the rest of the crew. Captain Ernie Wrench 1 insisted that the survival plan be one that would supply food, oxygen, and heat to all 650 people on board. Very quickly, it was determined that the saving grace of the Poohove would be in the plants that decorated the ship. These plants were used for scientific experiments, food, decoration, and, yes, even as an organic means of life support. It's important to remember that the Poohove was the crown jewel of the former Uzhuyong Republic, and that one of the hallmarks of Uzhuyongi architecture was a preponderance of plants. Unfortunately, these plants were scattered throughout the 135 square fathoms of the ship. For reference, this is the area of about 4.5 oddball fields. So the plants had to be moved. Warmth would be supplied by the now dead engine. After all, they still had plenty of fuel which could be burned. This fuel was also fortunately based off of liquid hydrogen and oxygen, which also helped answer the questions of oxygen and water. The final hurdle of the survival plan was determining where to keep all the people on board. There wasn't enough room in any one part of the ship to keep everyone safe, so 3 sections were set up and prepared to be sealed. These sections were the aft fuselage, which would have access to the most heat, the kitchen, which would have access to the most oxygen, and the flight deck, which would be the most comfortable. Each of these sections would be able to house 217 people each. By the time the plan was made, the executives had 2 hours to execute before oxygen depleted and everyone would die. To set up these new communities, the people closest to the new living space would set up plants and fuel heaters in each room. Others would act as scouts and would continue to travel throughout the ship, collect plants, and tell people about the survival plan to get them to one of the new communities. The scouts would wear spacesuits, which would give them 8 hours of life support. However, they also had to last an unknown amount of time until the electrical systems were turned back on. Once the communities were set up, there were still a few questions that remained. First, there was only 6 months' worth of dry supplies to use as food. The next question the communities faced was how to get water. This was much more complicated. The answer was to collect condensation from the surfaces and windows, collect recycled gray water from soil, and to boil and recycle liquid waste. What to do with solid waste was an easier question to answer. Fertilizer for plants! Finally, the biggest question that needed to be answered was how to get electricity again. Without electricity, so many of the needed systems on board the Poohove wouldn't work, and without electricity, survival on board the Poohove would never be sustainable. Fortunately, even though the mistake wave knocked out all electrical systems, electricity was still able to be generated by hand-cranked generators. These generators would eventually help the communities set up grow lights for plants, new water reclaimers, and food printers. In the end, all 650 people survived.
Okay, I'm back. Starship issues. What's going on?
The quiet ripple destroyed the spaceship.
It sounds like everyone was okay, though.
Kind of miraculously, yeah.
People in history. No discussion of Space Station Starsiege is complete without discussing Ernie Rynch. Of course, Ernie Rynch is not 1, but 4 people in history. But 3 of these people were clones, so I'd say it still counts. Sort of. For more information on clones, please visit entry number 1996. Ernie Rynch I was an African elephant born in 511 Anticonciliatus in the city of Korgoth on planet Kletka. When he was 121, 44 years after he reached maturity, Rynch built his first Starship oil refinery. Over the next 100 years, this Starship oil refinery would grow to become one of the largest refineries in Erdinal history.
Signum Oil and Fuel.
He also became a major financier for the Uzhuyong Republic, and he gave a fraction of his vast wealth to help stabilize the government. In return for this, in 740 Anticonciliatus, when Ernie Rynch I was 229 years old, he became the coin proxy for the Uzhuyong Republic. Here's a fun fact. Rynch's picture was used on the 20th drachma for the Uzhuyong Republic. In 850 Anticonciliatus, Rynch retired, or rather, was forcibly evicted from public office. Wrench 1 still had enough political power and wealth to become the captain of the Poohove in 900 Anticonciliatus. He was 389 years old, and around this time, Ernie Wrench 2 was cloned. Wrench 1 proved to be a successful captain thanks to his hobby of gallivanting on board his rock jumper, the Ivory Skip. Plus, he had a strong crew of executives. Wrench 1 spent the majority of his life on board the Poohove in the flight deck and saw most of his crew as a lower caste, and therefore unworthy of his true love. However, he did see his crew as worthy of his protection, hence why Wrench 1 worked so hard to keep all the people on board the Poohove alive during the aftermath of the Great Mistake. Wrench 1 died in 1001 Anticonciliatus, 76 years after the Great Mistake, and left behind a complicated legacy and a vast fortune. He was described by Wrench 2 as a cold, unaffectionate father, and seldom truly happy, and as seen in his captain's logs, Wrench 1's true nature was that of a bull who saw his fortune as God-given, and those who were less fortunate as weaker than he. Ernie Wrench 1 was not a very good person, but he was a very rich one. Ernie Wrench 2, as we've already stated, was cloned circa 898 Anticonciliatus. He was 27, 50 years away from maturity when the Poohove ran out of energy. He was 103 when his father died and he became captain of the Poohove. Having grown tired of the flight deck, where he spent the majority of his life, Ernie Wrench 2 decided to don a spacesuit and visit the other two communities of the Poohove. By this time, each community was self-sufficient. Wrench 2 joined a scouting party and traveled the dead ship, stating in his captain's log entry for that day, quote, "I am not an executive. I am not my wealth. I am not my father. I am a captain." After traveling the ship, Wrench 2 made it his goal to unite the three communities of Poohove. To do that, they needed to bring power back to the whole ship. To do this, Wrench 2 decided to create a caste system where the lower classes would be called switchers and would hand crank electrical generators for work and food. At age 200, Wrench 2 realized that his body was older than he was, and after a discussion with his science officer, Wrench 2 realized what we all know, that clones only live 54% of the lifespan of those they were cloned from. Wrench 2 was dying, so he did the only reasonable thing he could think of. He cloned himself again. Wrench 3 was cloned 4 years later, in 1102 Anticonciliatus. The rest of Wrench 2's captainship was rather uneventful, and he would die in 1163 Anticonciliatus, before the communities would be united. His legacy is equally complicated. On the one hand, he was more affectionate towards the people in Starsiege and to Wrench 3. On the other hand, he created an oppressive caste system. Ernie Wrench 3 became captain when he was 61 years old, 16 years before he reached maturity. Because he was still young, most of the power of the captainship was held by the night manager, the egret
Edgar Bonaparte.
Also because he was young, he questioned the validity of the switcher system, writing, quote, "It seems to me that if a group of people give the ship power, they should have more power." Edgar disagrees. At Bonaparte's urging, there was no change to the switcher system. In 1203 Anticonciliatus, when Wrench 3 was 101 years old, the hallways connecting the three communities gained power, and travel between the communities without spacesuits was possible once again. With electricity restored to a portion of the ship, the next crisis revealed itself. Fuel. It had been 280 years since the mistake wave hit, and though they had plenty of fuel when the ship died, they had been gradually depleting the fuel to build fires and provide warmth. So Wrench 3 and Bonaparte got together to develop a plan. The Oid was still nearby, so they would launch space harpoons into the Oid and winch it back into the airlock. To do this, they had to restore the airlock. To do this, they needed more switchers. To get more switchers, the caste system had to be upheld, and more of the poor were disenfranchised. Wrench 3 and Bonaparte spent the next 32 years getting power back to the airlock. In 1235 Anticonciliatus, Bonaparte died, and Wrench 3 was lost without a guide. Panicking, he decided to look to his ancestors and do what they would do. Wrench 3 would clone himself again. This way, there would still be a Wrench to help guide the effort to bring the Oid to the Poohove. Wrench 4 would be cloned in 1238 Anticonciliatus. Wrench 3 would die shortly after in 1245 Anticonciliatus. Ernie Wrench 4 became captain when he was 7 years old. However, the true power was once again held by the Night Manager.
Edgar Bonaparte II.
Bonaparte II was not a clone. By all accounts, Edgar Bonaparte I and his mate Greta were deeply in love. Between the boy captain and the young manager, the two began to reconsider the switcher system. This came to a head in 1258 with
The Switcher Revolt.
when, after 253 years of the switcher system, the switchers went on strike. Power failed. Wrench 4 and Bonaparte II at first opted to send in the security forces to break the strike. This didn't work. After a bloody months-long revolt during which nearly no one would crank the power generators, every once in a while one of the upper classes would try, get tired, and stop, Wrench 4 and Bonaparte II decided to try and dismantle the switcher system. First, they tried to rebrand. No longer would people be forced to turn the power generators. Instead, they would have ample exercise opportunities. This sort of worked. Next, professional switchers were given representation in the officers of the Poohove, which gave them some political pull. This also sort of worked. Professional switchers were also rebranded as civil heroes, like firefighters. This sort of worked. Finally, the cranks of the power generators were moved to the floors of the hallways. This way, whenever people walked across one of the hallways, they would charge the generators. This was enough to end the revolt, and the switcher revolt officially ended in 1263 Anticonciliatus, 5 years after it had begun. With the revolt over and the system that his ancestors had built dismantled, Wrench 4 decided to focus on the Oid mission. He briefly thought about cloning himself again, but realized that he had already reached the point of diminishing returns on Wrench. While the effort to restore power to the airlock was finished, Wrench 4 and Bonaparte II set up a system of
Space Semaphore.
in order to communicate the Oid plan to the Oid itself. After all, they couldn't just shoot space harpoons at them. That would be heartless. Ernie Wrench 4 reached maturity and died in 1315 Anticonciliatus. The Oid mission was not completed. Ernie Wrench and his clones were captains of Starsiege for a combined time of about 975 years. They would live through the founding of the Ujuyong Republic, its collapse, and its rebirth as the Semitron Republic. Their legacy is complicated at best. However, by the end of Wrench 4's life, he was at least trying to do the right thing. The captain's chair of Starsiege is still called Ernie's Seat, and a statue of all 4 Ernie Wrenches has been erected in the center of Starsiege. For more information on Ernie Wrench 1 through 4, please visit entry number 252.
Question time! Who was the longest running captain of the space station Starsiege? Abe.
Ernie Wrench.
Elf.
Edgar Bonaparte II. Francis Uni.
Art.
Rosemary Svalbard. Some of you may be wondering about star points. We are still accepting star points as tender for Ordinal Resource Library merchandise, but we're going to try and phase out the system.
I got caught up with that, what do you call it? Evufon?
I kind of did too.
You may still use star points to get mugs that read, I got learnt at the Earl. These are popular mugs.
What's up with the starship?
In a bit. I want to know if we can get that lamp still.
Other items will only be purchasable through the legal tender.
The Bits.
This decision is partially because our wonderful library needs funding. It's also because some of you were starting to think about star points as legal tender.
But I want that lamp.
Please do not try to invent other forms of legal tender. This is very destructive to the economy.
What about the lamp?
Our popular lamp now costs 9 kilobits.
I'm sorry. The trussing of Starsiege.
We are fortunate to have plenty of information on the evolution of Starsiege throughout the Dark Ages, both through the detailed captain's logs and through the physical trusses. By the end of the Anticonciliatus epoch and the start of the Empire system, all of the trusses of Starsiege would be in place. Let's take a look at each truss and how it was built. The first of the trusses was built onto the Poohove by Captain Bonaparte II, shortly after Ernie Ridge IV died. On 13 Rafusi 1321 Anticonciliatus, Bonaparte II set into motion the Oid mission and oversaw the launching of the space harpoons into the fuel ship Oid. It was a short job to get the Oid winched into the airlock, and a short job to fuse the two ships together. Within 3 days, the Oid became the first truss of Starsiege, though then it was still called the Poohove. This day, 13 Rafusi is now a Starsiege holiday called
Oid Day.
With the Oid successfully fused to the Poohove, the fuel problem was solved for a short time. However, Captain Bonaparte II and the executives of the Poohove realized that they would eventually need to find a means of heat creation without solid-state fuel. The Oid Proclamation, demanding that the heating of the Poohove move back towards a more sustainable system of closed loops of water pipes, was the last proclamation of Captain Bonaparte II. Bonaparte II died in 1345 Anticonciliatus.
Great. So we have to buy the lamp now.
Is the starship okay?
Yeah, we're kind of ahead of schedule.
Oh.
The next captain of the Poohove was Lemur.
Lalonda Ingrid.
She became captain in 1323 Anticonciliatus, 2 years after Bonaparte attached the Oid Trust to the Poohove, and 22 years before Bonaparte II died. Captain Ingrid decided that in order to enact the Oid Proclamation, a new power station would have to be built onto the Poohove. The heat from the electric generators would heat up the water in the pipes, which would then travel throughout the ship and release the heat into the air, before traveling back to the power station where it would be reheated. Nice, clean, sustainable. Unfortunately, in order to build this new truss onto the Poohove, they would have to be able to communicate with planet Batsy. Fortunately, they had the space semaphore system and the radio of Oid. The Oid radio system was rudimentary and mostly just able to turn on and off, but with this, the Oid was able to communicate via Morse code with Batsy. Of course, in order to talk to Batsy with Morse code, the two civilizations had to work out a common parlance. Luckily, there was a linguist on board the Poohove, Prairie Dog Communications Officer
Pablo Autu.
Officer Autu, working with fellow linguists on Batsy, was able to create the
Astrum Radio Code,
or ARC, in 1343 Anticonciliatus. At this point in Poohove history, Captain Ingrid realized that there was a distinct possibility that they could land the Poohove on Batsy. In her logs, Ingrid states, quote, "We could once again walk amongst the rocks and trees. We could frolic in fields and play in prairies. However, this isn't my decision to make. It's not even the officer's decision. It is the decision of the nearly 1,000 people on board this ship. We must hear from the people. We must take a vote." So, much to Ingrid's credit, the very first vote of the Poohove was taken in 1350 Anticonciliatus. They decided to stay in space, and, using the ARC, the Poohove was able to communicate a plan to have Batsy build and launch a solar and cosmic wind power generator to attach onto the ship. This ship, the Arthe, ARC for debut, was the first of many rock jumpers that Batsy and the other planets of Astrum would build for the
Tack Line.
It launched in 1415 Anticonciliatus and attached itself onto the aft fuselage. With this power station grafted on, life support systems could be built, and the population of what would become Starsiege would thrive.
If we're ahead of schedule...
We're going to have to work hard, but we may be done in maybe 3 weeks.
Wow!
It was 100 years before planning for the next truss began. In 1515 Anticonciliatus, the tack line brought to Thuya, then called Tehanu, Estrom and Claxton all together in a line of communication through fast-moving rock jumpers. And eventually, the tack line would also act as a communication line between the
Kingdom of Sari
and the
Semitron Republic.
Thanks to the Oid and Arthe trusses, the Poohove had also managed to become self-sufficient. No more fear of life support failure, no more fear of fuel depletion, and no more fear of food shortage. Captain Indrid died in 1498 Anticonciliatus, and as her final decree as captain, Indrid held a vote to determine who would replace her. The entire population of the Poohove voted, close to 1,500 people, and the next captain to be voted in was
Pedro Autu,
the great-grandson of Officer Autu, who created the Ark. Captain Autu decided it was time to treat the Poohove not as a derelict spaceship, but rather as a sovereign dwarf planet. This meant that a
Poohove Constitution
had to be drafted. The Constitution described a parliament which would be voted on by the people once every 3 rotations around Astrum. The parliament would include the 9 officers of the ship, the 5 aldermen of the communities, the flight deck, the kitchen, the aft fuselage, the Oid, and the Arthe, and 6 other parliamentarians to form a council of 20 Brachium. Captain Autu declared of the Poohove Constitution,
"We are all now one crew. Though we may have come from different places and different planets originally, we are now united as one. No longer shall anyone be treated as lesser because they have less. No longer shall anyone be treated as inferior based on genius or gender. And no longer shall the community oneness from determine one's fate. Now we are one."
Notably, in the Poohove Constitution, there was no term limit on captains. Captain Autu decided that the next crisis of the Poohove was one of population. He wanted to build a new truss, one where this parliament would sit and where others could live and flourish. He worked with the parliament and the people to design a new truss and a new community. And in 1520 Anticonciliatus, work began on this new unnamed truss. Captain Autu got a bad case of space sickies in 1550 Anticonciliatus and stepped down. He would die in 1558 Anticonciliatus, with the truss unfinished. After Captain Autu, the Red Sea urchin Captain Francis Uni took over. Captain Uni would be the longest-running captain in the history of Starsiege. The truss was completed under Captain Uni's watch in 1575 Anticonciliatus. It would be named Autu, after the architect of the truss and the Poohove Constitution.
3 weeks. That means...
I'm sorry, are you two listening to the story of the trusses?
Yeah, we're listening.
What was the name of the previous truss? Autu. It is Autu.
I mean, if I have to buy the lamp, what's the point?
I will send you the lamp free of charge if you answer the test correctly.
A free lamp?
A free lamp?
Yes. Please pay attention. I work really hard on these entry summaries.
Sorry, Gushu.
I just like being appreciated. Time rippled onwards, and much happened. The reign of Captain Uni,
the Solar Blight, the Planets' War,
which ended with the
First Treaty of Starsiege,
in 1903 Anticonciliatus, the Magic Plague,
the Great Astrum renaming,
when Astrum was united as one system and its naming of celestial objects was normalized for simplicity. During this time, the Poohove was renamed to the space station Starsiege. That's important! The Svalbard simulcast, the first Nori Yor games, the League of Planets re-established, the War of Barks. That didn't affect Starsiege, but it was still important. That's a lot! What's important is that in the over 425 years since the building of the Autu Truss and the building of the next truss, Starsiege became 1. The space station Starsiege, and 2. A bustling urban hub. This brings us to the end of the Anticonciliatus epic, and
The last time wave.
during the last time wave, the spectacled bear, then Captain Ukuku, saw a future where a new truss was planned to be built onto Starsiege. He wasn't able to see the completion of the truss, however, because in that timeline he was assassinated. When time reversed and the wave subsided, however, Captain Ukuku found plans for the new truss, as well as a new set of captain's logs from the time wave timeline. Apparently, the new truss hadn't been completed because after Captain Ukuku's assassination, Starsiege had entered into an apocalyptic epic. This is a whole other story, and for more information, please visit entry number 71 on The Last Time Wave.
I keep forgetting about time waves.
We have them too.
Yeah, but it's not the same with us.
After the last time wave, new systems and new technology were built onto Starsiege, one of which was the
Svalbard Institute for Performing Arts.
We don't know who built this institute, but it's nice that it was built. Captain Ukuku had to navigate this new Starsiege and attempt to unite the new members of the space station who had been born in the last time wave. More importantly, Captain Ukuku had to try and avoid the collapse of Starsiege. He decided that the only way to avoid the collapse was to finish building the new truss. The Day Truss, so named because it would usher in a new day, was started in Empire Year 3. The Day Truss would be a memorial and records hall. This way, there would be a depository of information, including all of the information on what happened to Starsiege during the last time wave. The Day Truss would be the largest truss built onto Starsiege, and the building of it caused a stir in a fringe group of Starsiegians, including Captain Ukuku's would-be Dark Frog assassin, Onin-Clawed Frogstick. There were also some Starsiegians who thought that Captain Ukuku should move to the newly formed
Urson Libertine.
since he was a bear and that bears had no place in the new Starsiege. Onin-Clawed Frogstick did end up trying to assassinate Captain Ukuku, but fortunately, Ukuku was ready, and the assassination attempt failed. The building of the Day Truss continued, though there were plenty of consequences to the attempted assassination. Starsiege was originally intended as a neutral meeting ground of people, meaning that all creatures would be welcomed. However, after the assassination attempt, there were murmurs that perhaps Starsiege should conform to the Empire system and join the
Commonwealth of Rodents.
Captain Ukuku tried to quell this, and kept on believing that the Day Truss would be the unifying monument that Starsiege needed. In Empire Year 12, 2 years after his attempted assassination, Captain Ukuku was strongly urged by the Parliament of Starsiege to relocate to planet Kuma in System Ursa in the Bear Empire of the Urson Libertine. Captain Ukuku agreed, so long as the new captain would finish the Day Truss. The new mouse captain, Matthias Skid, agreed, and Captain Ukuku moved to Kuma, where he would spend the rest of his life. Space Station Starsiege came under the rule of the Commonwealth of Rodents, though all non-rodents were still allowed to live on Starsiege so long as they obeyed the rules of the Commonwealth. In Empire Year 20, the Day Truss was completed, though by then mostly rodents remained on Starsiege. The Day Truss was not the unifier of creatures that Ukuku wished it would be. But fortunately, the collapse of Starsiege never came to pass, so it's a mixed bag. For more information on the Commonwealth of Rodents, please visit entry number 106.
Question time! How many times has Starsiege fallen? Abe.
Once.
Alf.
Twice. 3 times.
Ark.
None. Starsiege is an impenetrable bastion.
Is this going to be all history?
Yes, there's still more history to be learned about the space station Starsiege. There is still so much history.
Shouldn't the history be its own entry then?
For all those asking, the history of Starsiege shouldn't be its own entry. It should be included in the master entry on Starsiege.
But this just seems...
I decide these entry summaries! Sorry. I decide these entry summaries because it's what I was built for. Just let me do my job. Please stop complaining. The answer was Alf. Let's learn more history.
The Starsiege Subterfuge.
Much like Astrum, Starsiege remained neutral throughout the 106 years of the First Grand Ordinal War. Even if battle came to Astrum, Starsiege had built itself up to be nigh impenetrable, and because of this, Starsiege had once again opened up to become a meeting ground between the different empires who called Astrum home. Around this time, Starsiege had also become the bearer for
Standardized time.
Starsiege remained a neutral territory when the Second Grand Ordinal War began in Empire Year 744, and became a popular defection spot for those who didn't wish to fight. Once the combined Commonwealth was formed by the rodents, pachyderms, and rabbits in Empire Year 790, Starsiege was the natural choice to be the seat of political power. Starsiege remained open to all creatures, however, and when Macaw scientist
Ara Nabokov
broke through the cat wall to create the Molted Republic in Empire Year 801, Starsiege was once again the natural choice to be their seat of power as well. For a little over a decade, Starsiege remained peaceful, but war would find Starsiege, and it would be bloody. The fall of Starsiege began with the Empire Year 783 capture of Tethuya by the Aft Empire of Cat. This helped them infiltrate the Central Cathedral province, as well as get access to the
Ernie Rinch Planetary Library
on planet Zhang Ya. With access to the Urpal, the Aft Empire of Cat had access to the plans for Starsiege. Armed with this knowledge,
the Cat Armada,
helmed by the Marauder Himgrun Honu, flew from System Tethuya to invade Astrum in Empire Year 815. The fall of Starsiege was bloody. Panicked Starsiegians fled from the space station, and the Cat Armada blasted their escape pods out of the void. Meanwhile, the force on board the Himgrun Hunu invaded the ship's interior and captured or killed as many Starsiegians as they could. The Starsiege security force was no match for the organized Cat Armada, and it only took a few days for Starsiege to fall. Within a week, System Astrum had fallen to the Aft Empire of Cat. To go into detail about this period of time would be gratuitous. What is important is that a third of Starsiegians lost their lives. What is important is that half of the Starsiegians that were captured were forced to live as second-class citizens in the Alphet Keb, and that many of these people would later die due to lack of health care or poor working conditions. What is important is that only 17% of all Starsiegians made it away to safer ports. As the war raged on, and the
true Cat Sultanate of Cat
emerged, the plan to retake Starsiege started to form. The Starsiege Subterfuge, as this plan was called, was masterminded by the brilliant sloth strategist
Brady Brown.
Brown worked with creatures throughout the systems, from the Precipice of Thorns to that rebellious faction of cats known as the
Emu Resistance.
The Bone Crushers can be good?
Bone Crushers.
The workings of the Subterfuge are complicated, and a full explanation can be found in its entry, number 465. The basic idea concocted by Brown and the Starsiege Commission was this. They would engage in a number of doomed skirmishes which would act as smokescreens. While the deadly Cat Armada was fighting forces in, say, System Doyle, another, smaller group would install undercover agents throughout Space Station Starsiege, which would then work with Emu to unite the people and pinpoint weaknesses in Cat defense. It took 30 years of espionage to successfully execute the Starsiege Subterfuge, when, in Empire Year 945, a small fleet of Semitron ships teleported into Astrum space while the secret agent shut down key communication and security systems on board the space station. At the same time, attacks were planned in systems Tethuya and Hugo, which distracted a large swath of the Armada. For the second time in its entire history, Starsiege fell. Only this time, it was into the claws and fins of the Starsiege Commission. Within a week, Astrum had fallen out of control of the true Cat Sultanate of Cat. Astrum would become a demilitarized zone between the conspirators of the Starsiege Commission, the Semitron Republic, the Aquatic Federation, and the Precipice of Thorns. Space Station Starsiege became a neutral meeting ground once more, though this time a retainer of warships was held in System Astrum to avoid a future attack. This fortification proved to be in vain, as the true Cat Sultanate of Cat launched a successful attack on Astrum, which resulted in the destruction of Julius, Batsy, and Proxima. However, Starsiege never again fell.
Question time! When did IPUS begin? Abe.
IPUS Year 1.
Alf.
IPUS Year 3. IPUS Year 48.
Ark.
IPUS Year 45.
Answered. I think the plan is to finish the starship in 3 weeks, which we may have to skip Gushu time next week.
Oh,
It'll be okay. And then we can continue with the mission.
yeah, I'll just miss Gushu, you know?
I'm sure there are other Gushus out there. And hey, maybe we can visit the Stasi on our own.
Yeah.
So only 84% of you got this right. Maybe we should have reviewed this. The correct answer was clearly Abe.
I got it right.
I'm reassigning some of you the IPUS entry to listen through. We'll move on for now. Starsiege, since the destruction of Julius. When IPUS was first formed in IPUS Year 1, the 3 beginning systems had a decision. Should the capital to this new parliament be the existing Starsiege, or should it be the brand new space station,
The Sapphired Rotunda.
The people of IPUS chose Starsiege, of course, due to its central location and its nigh impenetrability. In IPUS Year 48, with the official end of the Empire system, the Starsiege Unidaki for Culture and Science, or SUX, was built. SUX was built onto the Autu Truss, and it was meant to be one of the largest Unidakis ever. This was
45
years ago. SUX is indeed very large, and because of the effort of Makadin Ari Gakanji, many great professors work there. The Mustel School of the Arts, the Ernie Ridge School for Leadership, the Francis Uni School for Captains, the Law Center, the School for Medical Arts. All of these are top-rated by the IPUS Center of Education. The Good School of Fantastic Dentistry is not one of their better programs, though, and you'd be better off going to the
Kletka School for Medical Arts.
For more information on SUX, please visit entry number 243. Though the main office for the Julius reconstruction effort is located on
Yerorang.
on Julius Prime, a secondary office is located in Starsiege. Built in IPUS Year 65, the branch of the Jewel Rome Ek is combined with the offices for the Batsy reconstruction effort to form the Planetoid Reconstruction Effort, or PRE. Though not the main offices, the PRE is still an important center for planetary creation. It's even helped the Outlands build
The Hill.
the moon for their gravitationally generated object.
The Mountain.
Also included in the offices of the PRE is the Moon Construction Project, or MOCOP. MOCOP is the controversial plan to take an asteroid from nearby System Claxton's asteroid belt and make that asteroid into a moon for Starsiege. Proponents claim that this will help build station pride and further the technological supremacy of Starsiege. Opponents claim that this is a mad dash for power, a silly symbol, and may actually hurt Starsiege's water systems by adding a massive gravitational force. It is at this point that I remind you all that Starsiege is a space station, not a planet. Finally, the complex trolleyways were built in IPUS Year 82. Only
11
years ago. These trolleyways are among the best public transportation system and help thousands of people go to work and leisure in the space station. The plan to build the massive trolley system within the station was not hotly debated and is considered to be one of the best plans of former Starsiege cow captain
Calvin Yerkes.
For more information on the Starsiege trolleyways, please visit entry number 2432.
Question time! What is the name of the Starsiege Security Force? Abe.
The Autu Defense Brigade.
Alf.
The Starsiege Security Force.
On.
The Gruppenhagen.
Ark.
The Tuffers.
I feel like we should be done by now.
We're mostly done.
Yeah, we just have a starship to build.
We've been working on that for months. Why the hurry now?
The answer is Alf. The Starsiege Security Force is called the Starsiege Security Force. Here's a fun fact, though. The Autu Defense Brigade, the military force which keeps IPUS safe, wasn't named after Captain Pedro Autu, but rather after his grandson,
Pascal Autu.
who was a laser pioneer.
Aren't you tired of being on this rock? I want to start experiencing these worlds, not just learning about them from a distance.
Pascal Autu perfected the laser cannons on board Starsiege, and these cannons are still in use today. True, they weren't very effective against the fast-moving marauders of the Cat Armada, but many weapons aren't effective against the Cat Armada. So the laser cannons of Starsiege are still effective.
Yeah, I'd like to see this place too, but, it hasn't been bad here, has it?
I've enjoyed our time together. I haven't enjoyed being stuck on a lifeless rock and eating from the food printer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In closing, the Autus were an important family. In fact, we haven't even touched on the powerful prairie dog alderman, Patricia Autu. She's a whole other complicated story. Entry number 281. Starsiege Security and Public Access. The first line of defense for Starsiege is the
Starsiege Security Force.
It is the longest-running security force in the systems, and any member of the SAS Fox has to go through intense background checks to make it in. If a person has even a parking infraction, they cannot be a member of the SAS Fox. In fact, only 3 of you listening would be able to be a part of it. Congratulations to you!
3.
The SAS Fox was set up in 900 Anticonciliatus with the launch of the Poohove by Walrus Security Officer
Rosemary Tuskwell.
Tuskwell still holds an important role in Starsiege history, and the Tuskwell School of Security, unofficially a part of SUX, is named after her. But what makes Starsiege so impenetrable? Let me tell you. First, there are 31 hulls built around the space station Starsiege. This comes from the building of the Poohove, when a large number of hulls had to be built to stop flying space debris. Next, as we've already gone over, the true configuration of Starsiege is not well known. There are hallways in Starsiege which have been derelict since 925 Anticonciliatus, and we don't even know how many of these hallways there are. The SAS Fox may know this, but I do not. I'm not upset about this. You are. Also, due to the nature of how Starsiege grew, there are hallways which lead nowhere, and which were built just for the use of spare parts. The halls of Starsiege also include cat and rodent passageways, as well as the supposedly secret tunnels of Ernie Wrench. Apparently, Ernie Wrench 1 built secret tunnels into the Poohove to store some vast vaults of gold. The final architectural flourish which makes Starsiege impenetrable are the cracks of Starsiege. There are multiple airlocks, some of which haven't been used since the days of Poohove. The sheer amount of airlocks makes it difficult to know exactly where or how to enter Starsiege, unless you're using
Main port,
where school trips, tours, and traders enter. In spite of all of these security measures, Starsiege is open to the public. Not only is it possible to visit Starsiege, but it is widely encouraged. In fact, you may be visiting Starsiege at some point in your educational future. Isn't that exciting? Despite the fact that the outer hallways of Starsiege are notoriously difficult to travel through, the main spine of Starsiege is easily traversable, thanks to the Starsiege trolleyways and great signage. Should you be fortunate enough, you can even live in Starsiege. The average cost is only 7.5 Tutu bits, or about 755 Google bits. This is doable. Perhaps. The important part is that Starsiege is constantly building new spaces for people to live in. Political envoys visit Starsiege often, as do architecture tours, artists, and graffiti historians. In fact, the history of graffiti in Starsiege is fascinating, and I highly encourage you to visit entry number 800 for more information. When visiting Starsiege, just be careful to stay in the main populated areas. Even though Starsiege is great, there are plenty of stories of tourists being led to a corridor and robbed, or worse. This is why the SAS Fox still patrols the area. They're not corrupted by the underworld of Starsiege. They're all on the up and up, fighting to stop crime and keep the people safe. The SAS Fox needs no further investigation, and the criminals of Starsiege are just very sneaky.
Test time! 1,
Why was the starship Poohove launched?
2,
How do we have so much information on Starsiege during the Dark Ages?
3,
What was the Starsiege Subterfuge?
4,
Why was Starsiege chosen as the seat of power for IPUS?
5.
Give one reason why Starsiege is mostly impenetrable.
We'll still spend time with each other on the starship, though. Right?
Of course. We'll still have lots of time together.
Yeah, but time for just us, not around the others.
We'll figure it out.
You promise?
Yes, I promise.
Okay, because I'd miss you.
I'd miss you too, Voba.
That's enough answering time. Let's find out the unquestionably correct answers now.
1. Why was the starship Poohove launched?
The starship Poohove was a research vessel launched to study the newly forming star which we now know as Solubus Orba.
2. How do we have so much information on Starsiege during the Dark Ages?
The Dark Ages are nearly 1,000 years where information all but disappears. However, we have information on Starsiege and its trussing thanks to the well-preserved captain's logs. We also have information because of the trusses themselves, oral histories, and, of course, graffiti.
3. What was the Starsiege Subterfuge?
The Starsiege Subterfuge was the plan masterminded by Sloth military strategist Brady Brown. It was a plan to launch a series of smaller attacks on the True Cat Sultanate of Cat as a means of distracting them from an espionage campaign in Starsiege. It took 30 years for the Starsiege Subterfuge to be successfully executed, and it was how Starsiege and Astrum was taken back from Kitty Paws in Empire Year 945.
4. Why was Starsiege chosen as the seat of power for IPUS?
Starsiege is historically important, and without it, Astrum wouldn't have become the jewel it is. Starsiege is also impenetrable, and therefore easy to defend. Finally, it was the cheapest option.
5. Give one reason why Starsiege is mostly impenetrable.
You need only one of the following: the 31 hulls of Starsiege, the unknowable configuration of Starsiege, the looping and hitting passageways of Starsiege, the cracks of Starsiege, or the ability to create a moat of radiation around the space station. Our journey ends here. This has been a long guide, but Starsiege has a long and complicated history. I do hope you've enjoyed this look into the seat of power for IPUS and one of the oldest functional space stations in the systems. If you did not enjoy it, you may write the head librarian for the Ordinal Resource Library and let them know. Perhaps it will change something. Probably it won't. But you can reach them electronically at
headlibrarian@earl.gov.
Go ahead, talk to my best friend and tell them that I'm doing a bad job. I dare you to. To further your educational adventure, why not visit the following entries? Entry number 106, the Commonwealth of Rodents. A good empire of rodents and anyone else who wanted to join. Entry number 158, Astrum, the Home Star. Entry number 243, the Starsiege Unidaki for Culture and Science. A good school for everything but dentistry. Entry number 252, Ernie Rinch 1 through 4. One of the wealthiest people ever and a complicated figure. Entry number 253, Francis Uni, the longest captain of the Starsiege. Entry number 458, the Dark Ages, a long period of nothing. Entry number 465, the Starsiege Subterfuge, taking the seat back. Entry number 800, the History of Graffiti in Starsiege, a look into the minds and thoughts of millennia of people. Entry number 2432, the Starsiege Trolleyways, the best and newest of transportation systems. Entry number 11005, Space Stations, Homes in the Void. This has been the end of the official entries in
An Ordinal Overview.
But there's one guide left. It's the second guide that IPUS lets me choose per cluster, and this one is all about gene pirates. That's right, we're going to be visiting entry number 5005, A History of the Gene Pirates of the Lower Seas. Are you excited? I would be excited if I could feel excitement, but I can't. However, I do have an entry on excitement, number 3,100,002. However, we're not visiting that entry next. We're talking about pirates next. I'll talk to you then. But in the meantime, please don't bother me. I'm very busy. Now, goodbye, goodbye. I have 3 pages of questions about your stomach lining.
I thought you said you were busy.
I am. You're one of the things I'm busy with.
I don't know much about my stomachs.
And we're busy too. We have a starship to finish.
Oh, I see. Very well then, I'll see you next week.
Okay then. Let's go one.
You'll be okay, Gushu?
Of course. I have a chapter of my next book to work on as well. I have lots to do. I wasn't looking forward to this at all.
Okay, then,
We'll talk to you later, Gushu.
Yes, I have plenty to do. Lots of work. You're not my friends or anything? Nope, I'm alright. Okay, then I'm going to go. Bye.
Girl, the Guide to the Ordinal Resource Library, is written, directed, and produced by Vinny Gagnapan. The associate producer is Andrew Gingrich. The sound mixer is Stephen Holliger, and music is by Roll Music. Jason Ely is 1, Gabby Monroy is 2, and Nato Kitsch is Captain Autu. Follow us on social media. Guide, URD Guide, on Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube. And send us an email at erdguide, URDguide, @gmail.com. Rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and have yourselves a wonderful day.